Yes, you know it's going to be a good day when you're so heavily organised. I mean, like, we were on time. I got notes. Our pets' heads are falling off. Yes, that's it, guys. Yes, it is Thursday. It is 9. So, of course, UK Cowboys time. Yeah, it is season 4, episode 35, pre-game show for this weekend's game, which is, of course, the Governor's Cup trophy, whichever way you want to put it, where they play the Houston Texans. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be quite an interesting show. We've got to get through it regardless, guys. So, okay. But I always start by asking this question, and I dread to ask it for this week. But how do you guys feel about this weekend's game? And everyone at home as well, the MVPs of the show. Let us know what you think, just initially, of this weekend's game. Hit me with it.
Cowboys by 40.
You certainly should hope that. Obviously, I think the Texans will be using this much like Washington and Philadelphia have Dallas week. I think it's going to be Dallas week in Houston. You know, it's probably the equivalent of Edinburgh, Glasgow, or something along those lines. That you got the interstate rivalry, and you've got the Governor's Cup, obviously.
Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Texans right now. They're what 1-10-1 or something like that. So
yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, so I don't expect anything too great from them, to be honest. Especially how everything's gelling up together for them right now. So
yeah, I mean, they literally they are aiming for the first overall pick, right?
Love Benny's comment there.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting one. I was saying, off air that I was trying to write this week's article about the opposing offenses and just the disparity in talent between the two. I had to rewrite it twice, using the same sentences too many times.
So this was the thing where I kind of stopped doing the writing side for blogging the boys because I was just struggling with the creativity with the writing side of things. Like, I'm better talking about it than I'm writing about it. So
I know. You've left me in there on my own as the only British guy now.
I could be fine.
I still miss you over there.
Yeah, well, I'm 6,000 miles away from you all now.
Yeah, as opposed to 600, yeah. Yeah, but obviously, yes, we're gonna talk about this weekend's game. Now, the injury or practice report is just literally dropping. So I will try and get that up at some point, injury report, before any of you comment. I know what you guys are like. So we will wait for that to drop fairly shortly, and we can talk about that. But yesterday's injury report, certainly for Houston, I don't know if you guys seen it. It was lengthy.
I don't think it was as bad as what was the one that was a couple of weeks ago? It was like nearly every player was like off.
Yeah, that was a bad one. But yeah, I mean, like, they've got just major parts just missing, and like, because everyone talked about Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks, literally, he's not going to play. By the looks of it, you know what I mean.
And on the he's annoyed the fact that he didn't get traded. So I don't blame him, to be honest. Because like there was the whole talk of we would actually get Cooks at one point. I mean, that could be still being the cards in this offseason. It could be.
Yeah, it's a bit like who is it? Cam Akers in Los Angeles as well.
Yeah.
He'd taken time out from the team. He obviously wanted away as well, and never got his release, so he was a bit cheesed off and holding out of practices. And as soon as the trade deadline passed, Cooks didn't practice for about 3 or 4 days, and then he's been fairly spotty since. So it certainly looks as if he's trying to engineer his way out. But I mean, cash salary cap wise, they can really do it, and it's his problem because he signed the big contract. So
Yeah.
It's like, what do you do in that spot for them? I mean, it's literally a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mike, can you do me a favor? Can you bring up Austin's comment about the show?
Lauren's on the old comms today.
Yeah. So, yeah, just to let you know. So, I think I think we did try to do that before, but because of we're in multiple locations, our TV set or whatever that could be 5 seconds delayed from one side. So
It can be done. It can be done.
It can be done, but it's a lot more complicated. See, if we were all in the same room, it wouldn't be as much of an issue. So,
Yep.
So just to kind of highlight that there for my friend.
If we get okay, if we get to the NFC Championship game, we'll do that live. And I know, because I know how to do it. It just takes a little bit of organizing.
Actually stream the actual game, obviously.
No, we can't do that.
I will be in a pub that night, hopefully with a distinguished
Oh,
guest.
yes, of course. Yeah. That's right. Well, I mean,
I'll pop in occasionally, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, the injury report aside, the other news is the Odell Beckham news, which is popping out at the moment. So he's come to Dallas. We've seen all the videos and him at the basketball game and players talking about all the rest of it with him. Leaves Dallas, and I said this a few weeks ago that it's going to be medicals are the sticking point with him, that he leaves not being offered a contract. And it has come out that they're saying, look, we didn't get to see him run any routes. We didn't get to see him do any athletic moves. So we don't know where we are with him. I'm not surprised. What about you?
I'm not either. And I mean, you know, we said in the run up to this, if he's ready to play, you know, he could be a good. He is a good player, but you know, is the knee ready? And you know, you're not. It's been mentioned that you know most players when they've come back from injury and it's the off season and they're training, you'll get the videos of them doing cuts, doing routes, and everything like that. You haven't seen any of that. Or if you have seen anything with him, it's been him working out in the gym. It's you know front on running. There's no cutting or anything like that, which suggests there's a problem with the knee still, that it's not 100%. And I think, you know, Jay Glazer obviously broke about a month ago that, you know, he'd been cleared to play, but, you know, I think that was a bit of smoke and mirrors trying to generate the interest.
Because then, Lorne, being cleared to play, but being, you know, a game fit, if you like, are totally different things. Do you know what I mean?
Agreed, but I mean, I think if he was cleared to play, then you know the Cowboys would actually sign him and probably do a ramp-up period because they don't need him. You know what they're saying is it's still another 5 weeks. As far as the Cowboys are concerned, they wouldn't sign off on it for another 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So you know at that point you're talking first week of the playoffs. And do you really want to go into a playoff game where you've only literally started his ramp-up period, and you know you're expecting him to play on 1 week and immediately have an effect that he has chemistry with Dak Prescott? I just don't see that happening. So, you know, and by all means, I mean obviously Odell wants to be here. He has the connections here. Maybe a deal can be done for 2023, but I think it's off the cards for just now, to be honest.
Yeah, it sounds like if he does come in, it'll be give him a contract for now to put him in the building, so he's here this year, but you're not going to see him until next year. And is that really what the Cowboys want to do when you can just wait and see? Because I mean, like, think about this, right? This is what I'm thinking about. Is I go back to the Michael Gallup sort of thing. You know, like he was cleared to play, he's ready to come in. Look how many weeks that dragged on before he finally came in and played. It went on for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I think as well it's interesting that, you know, Odell started meeting people last Monday or Tuesday, and we started the 21-day window on James Washington on the Wednesday. So maybe there've been a bit of feedback between teams then, and okay, you can take it with a pinch of salt if the Giants say, oh yeah, he's not ready, or, you know, the Bills say he's not ready. You know, maybe they're just trying to get an in by saying, oh, well, the Cowboys aren't going to be interested in you, here's a deal or whatever. And eliminating competition, bargaining competition. But I'm not surprised that, you know, James Washington's window has been started. I think obviously the plan will be to activate him as soon as possible. You know, assuming he doesn't suffer a setback. By all accounts, he's been ready for about 4 or 5 weeks, and it's all this, you know, will they, won't they sign Odell that's limited him to when they start the 21-day window. So,
you know, getting James back will be good too. He's going to be coming back at the right time. And there's something that he has over Odell is that he's at least taken passes off Dak, and Dak's seen him run and knows how to, you know, judge his acceleration, his pace, and his speed, and what his strengths are on the route running. So there's already some of that there already, which is good.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, apart from that, guys, anything you want to hit before we get into the offense?
I'm all good, man. All good.
Obviously, I think the main thing from this weekend is, unfortunately, you know, he's been criticised this year, but we've lost Anthony Brown. We've now trying to piece together how we're going to have somebody against the number 2 guy. You know, obviously Kelvin Joseph should be the one that comes in, but you know, he's been fairly spotty so far, and then obviously he's still suffering from this flu bug that's going around. He's got a second bout of it. So he was out of practice yesterday. We've brought in Mackenzie Bernadette, who obviously was a second round pick. He's been a journeyman already. This is something like his 3rd team that he's had two stints with Minnesota, one with the Dolphins, and you know, he's now with the Cowboys. It's matching up with George Edwards again. You know, so you've got a bit of familiarity there. You've got Kendall Sheffield on the practice squad, who's a Dan Quinn guy as well. So perhaps these are options. One of these will come up for the game, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah, I think that the Mackenzie thing is all covering themselves for if Joseph really, really does poop the bed. On that side. But I mean, we'll get to that now on the defense. So let's hit the Cowboys offense. All right. Yeah. So let's start with this. 220 rush yards last week. Here's a crazy one for you. Crazy stat. Of the 3 running backs, you know, we can add rushing yards from guys. We'll leave that for now. But the 3 running backs last week, Zeke had the lowest average yards per carry, and he still had 4.5 yards per carry. What do you make at the moment, Lorne, of 2 things? The dynamic duo of Zeke and Pollard, but also Kellen Moore with his play calling, and also there seems to be a shift going on in his willingness to play more of the run game now that he understands the value of it. What do you make of those 2 things?
I think it's just, you know, we are incredibly lucky with the pairings that we've got this year, the chemistry that's going on with this team. That Zeke's not being, oh, I need to get my touches. He knows that there's a good camaraderie in the running back room. We obviously know what there is with the tight end room, and everybody is playing unselfish ball this year, and because of it, everybody is developing and everybody's creating their own wee niche, and it's generating a buzz, obviously, in the fan base, and we're seeing the results, and it's paying off. So,
yeah, I mean, it is good to see, without a doubt, and I tell you what is even better to see, and I know we'll get to the O-line in a moment, but what is good to see is Tony Pollard taking these power and these gap power handoffs to run through the middle. Like we're seeing him doing that now, rather than these off tackle runs, which is he's quite been prominent and effective at. He's started now becoming not just taking them, but being effective doing it. So there's a lot of the argument that people have is that, you've got to play Zeke because Zeke is much better at the power game than Pollard is. Now we're starting to see Pollard drifting this way a little bit more. Although he's by far, he's nowhere near what Zeke can do. And, we've seen it on the touchdown run that they're inside the red zone. And the entire crowd is shouting it. They're calling for Zeke. Zeke gets the handoff and he just powers in. Zeke's mum found that moment quite good too. She was all over Twitter talking about it. But that is what you get. Do you know what I mean?
I do, and I think what you're saying now is that you go back to what you call tendency breakers. Obviously, as soon as Pollard comes on the field, you would normally go and protect your outside running game. And Pollard's now coming up the inside, and then you bring Zeke on, and you'd think, right, okay, defend the middle, and Zeke's bouncing it out to the outside, and you're saying, okay, Zeke's still not back to 2016 Zeke, but he's still got the arsenal. The only thing we haven't seen Zeke do this year is hurdle anybody, much the way that Ferguson did. But we're certainly seeing things like that. So it's again, it's just showing that we're really getting the best out of this squad. And Kellen, for as much as Kellen Moore is criticised, he's actually doing things and getting. He's staying within his bag. He's not going too exotic all the time, and it's
like these trick plays and everything.
Yeah. And it's building momentum as the game goes on. And okay, it was a bit scary at one point where 3 minutes to go in the third quarter, we were only up by 2 points. But as long as you chip away at that and you're not constantly in 3-and-out situation, this is the offense is building and building to pull away in the second half. So.
Yeah, and just so you know, Paul's messaged me. He's having issues with his Wi-Fi at the hotel. So we will stick with it and see what happens there. I'm just letting him know. But yes, that's the joy of being on public Wi-Fi. But here's another one for you as well. In the last couple recent weeks, we're seeing it most certainly with CD Lamb. Is he an elite wide receiver, or is he just on the cusp right now with what he's done?
I think he's on the cusp, but I think he's getting there. And I mean, obviously, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, so, and again, it was that at the same time that all the OBJ talk really started heating up, both Gallup and CD Lamb have sort of turned it up a notch.
Yeah, it's true.
But I mean that game there against the Colts, I mean that was CD Lamb back to how he was at Oklahoma, and
Definitely.
Being a menace everywhere on the field, and that first touchdown he scored where it looked like he'd been tackled, but he knew he hadn't touched down at all, so he carried on running, and everybody else had stopped, and sure enough, the refs rolled him that he hadn't touched the ground, so. That just goes that he's got presence of mind. So,
yeah, I mean, like you say with the whole Oklahoma thing, it wasn't even that play that was a smart heads up play. The one for me was where he catched the ball on the left hand of the field on a crossing route. He catches the ball, and you see him do it. He drags his feet, sinks the hips to the left, and you just watch him he sort of diagonally comes backwards, like almost in an instant, like as if he teleported there. And yeah, okay, he's gone backwards, but what he's done is he's thinking about how he's trying to manipulate the defenders and their angles. As soon as he does it, he's obliterated every angle those defenders had on him. And that's why you see it. And then all of a sudden he's sort of running around and he's getting that first down. Whereas if he had tried to power and go the way that he did, which is what you probably would have seen from CD Lamb, say, last year, then he would have probably still made the first down, but it wouldn't have been as far as he did get by doing it. And it's just that, because that's what he was really, really good in college at, was just this carrying defenders, making them lose angles on him, get the ball in his hand, and being that yak guy that you just want to get the ball in his hand and let him go, because he'll just take guys with him, you make them, he'll lose them. And that was the Oklahoma CD Lamb that we saw, and it's probably the first time we've seen him doing it. You've seen spurts of what he did in Oklahoma, obviously. But that was like really, really starting to come from. But the big one for me that I think has changed and why he's starting to play better seems to be his mentality. Like as if he's got it on his shoulders where he's just like, I am a wide receiver one. I'm not going to let you bully me. I'm going to be more physical than you. I'm going to boss you. I'm going to beat you. That's what I think has changed. I don't know what you think on that one.
No, I agree. And I mean, it is developing the attitude that, all of these guys are quiet guys off the field. They're not they're not the Michael Irvins who, demand the headlines and are constantly getting screen time and shouting and what have you. Yeah. These guys are quite happy. They've almost got the sort of take your lunch to work in a brown paper bag and sort of sit there. It's that sort of mentality, and they're only just realizing that they've got to actually step up, and they don't necessarily have to be the loud wide receiver, but they need to be loud on the pitch in terms of what their playing is and their play style is, and they're slowly developing into it. And in some respects, having we talked about what happens to this offense when you lose Amari. I think that's one of the things. Obviously, these guys have taken a while to step up, but they realize that they don't have Amari anymore, and it is up to them. And from that point of view, maybe Amari was a bit of a progress stopper. That you didn't have these guys coming on. They always knew that Amari was going to get the double teams most of the time. And is that me or you?
That's me. Sorry.
Right. No.
It's Paul messaging me.
That mentality is now coming up. So they're ready to assume the mantle of the number one receivers.
Yeah, definitely. And a big part of, I think, CD Lamb's success as well is obviously the running success, because that opens things up for him to do. but it's hand in hand as well, because I think CeeDee Lamb knows how important the running game is to him, which is why as well now you're starting to see him really sacrifice himself in the run game. Like you'll see him get physical, get up in, and start trying to maul guys, because he is looking definitely more bulkier this year. Like build wise. And I think he knows that the run game helps the passing game. So he's getting himself more involved in that. You're seeing the success of the run game, and we'll talk about the offensive line right in a second. And that then has an effect for CeeDee Lamb, which also has an effect for Michael Gallup, which also has an effect for the running backs in the passing game, which is something that's spurred on quite a lot recently as well as the tight ends. And it's all stemming from one point and moving from that. And CeeDee Lamb is aware of that. And that's why you're starting to see these things happen.
Yep.
Is my opinion. But let's get to the offensive line. So we will continue to praise the right-hand side of that line, because that line is really doing its job. Like, we can't complain about the right-hand side of the line. We'll talk about the left in a moment, but I want to talk about the forgotten man, Tyler Biadasz. Nobody talks about him.
I do. And I mean, this weekend you saw... Yeah, I mean, this weekend you saw Tyler Smith and Tyler Biadasz both down the field, taking out the second level, taking out the third level, and everybody was ready to write off Tyler Biadasz at the end of last year and all that.
Yeah.
What you've got to remember that, All-Pro Mark Stepnoski took about 3 years to really develop into the role. He was drafted 89, and it wasn't until the 91 season that he really became the true starter.
I think that's because he grew in inches a little bit.
Yeah. but you always say that Tyler Biadasz is undersized, but Mark Stepnoski was undersized at the best of times. And if you watch the deep blue of the 91 season that was done this year, you look at him now, he looks like somebody from Harry Potter at the moment, the Minister of Magic,
Yeah.
And that's obviously because he's spent a lot of time in Canada, with the wacky backy and all that. But
yeah, and on the maple syrup, he's on the mapes. He's on the mapes. But yeah, I mean, so Biadasz, I think it's just quietly getting it done. And like I've always said this about center, is that it's the really with center, and playing offensive line yourself. When it comes to center, it's the little details. Like for the guys outside of them, they need to know which direction and what have you. But with the center, they've got to know the playbook without looking at a wrist. The quarterback gets the playbook, the mini playbook on him. He's got to know that without looking at that. He's got to know his what his adjustments are, where he's putting the guys, and he's got to be looking at the Mike linebacker and working off that. And he's got to know all of this, and he's got to do it very, very quickly. He's got to communicate. And then past that, then he's got to snap the ball and he's got to block.
Yep.
He's got to block himself. And I think he's doing it. He's not Travis Frederick. Don't get me wrong, right? I'm not saying, I know there's the similarities and all the rest of it, yeah. But I think because, like you say, last year people wanted to write him off. To me, last year was his rookie year. Because if you remember, the year before that, he was kind of like buried because they decided, I think was wrong what they did, because it just stunted his growth. But I think so. Like this year is like his sophomore year. So I think next year is really the year. I know that's his fourth year, but really this is third year. And you always say give it 3 years, where we will truly find out what he is. And I think the way, like that progression, the steps, the ladder going up, it with him, it is going in stages, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you see from the videos in the off season where he's been working with Duke Manyweather, and
I know you watch that closely.
Oh, I do, and you see this. You see the strange drills that Duke puts him through, but it's obviously it's working. You know, holding bars above your head that the weights are then suspended from bungee cords, so you're not getting an easy lift that you would normally if the bars were if the weights were on the bar. You know, that it just shows that you don't always get the perfect block or the blocking position, and you've got to work your way out of that and what have you. So he's developing that, and each year it's almost like he's taking a different aspect, improving on that, and he will eventually become. Hopefully, he will eventually become the perfect center. I think as people have said here, we were spoiled with Frederick.
We were,
and
I took it for granted too.
Yeah, and it's much like Danny White taking over from Roger Staubach. When you're coming in and you're taking on the spot of an All-Pro, and the guy's retired or whatever, and you're the heir apparent and all that, and if you're not ready to assume the big time, then the fans lose faith in you.
Fast,
and you've got to, and fast, especially because it's not like baseball where you've got 160 games a season. You've literally got 17 games. And, if you don't win 10 of those, or you play bad in 10 of those, then, you're out of this. I mean, look at this. If the Cowboys win this weekend, we're guaranteed that we'll have a 10-win season, and that's back-to-back 10-win seasons. The last time we had that was 95 and 96. So that just goes to show how long that's been, that we've been this consistent. So
and talking about consistency too, Lorne, is like when you talk about, like it's 17 weeks, break it down even further, that for an offensive lineman, it's, 60, 70 snaps, because very rare, I know we're going to talk about the changes offensive line make. Very rare do you get interchange on the offensive line. Cowboys are at the moment, but really it is. So they're on for all of it. And you think about it, right? They need to be perfect on every snap. If they allow one sack, so they do something wrong just once, that's enough for everybody to turn around and go like, well, that's it. He's right. Tyler Smith had it this year. Oh, he's let a sack. That's it. He's right. It's just one. It just needs to be one. And that's enough. Like, think about that.
I mean, you would have some people would have you believe that Tyler Smith, is giving up a sack a game or something like that. He's only actually given up something like 4 sacks this season. He's only had something like 31 pressures. Giving up 31 pressures as well. Terrence Steele as well, who obviously is great as a run blocker. Supposedly, pass blocking is his weakness, but he's only given up 1 sack. He's only given up something like 18 pressures through the first 11 games or so.
It's incredible.
It is. Yeah. And these are guys that are on their rookie contracts. In the case of Terrence Steele, he's on a free agent contract, so he's not on the draft pick money. But obviously he's going to be looking at a big pay deal in this next off season, because he becomes a free agent then. So
I think he's restricted though.
Yeah. But I'd imagine there'll be some consideration. They'll want to put a tender on him where they get at least a second rounder or something like that for him. So
definitely. And let's talk about the left-hand side of the line. Tyron Smith, he's due to come back. Activated his 21-day window, so he's going to be coming back soon. And Mike McCarthy spoke before they activated about how often Tyron Smith has been in the facility, been in the gym, working with various people. So we knew it was coming. What was interesting is we seen last week Tyler Smith at left tackle. We seen him at left guard. We've seen Jason Peters at left tackle, and we've seen Conor McGovern at left guard. Like, there is right now, I'm not sure which way to put it all. But obviously, Tyron Smith is going to be coming in. He's going to be playing your left tackle because he just is. Until he proves he cannot do it, he is your he's your all-pro, very possible Hall of Famer left tackle. He's not going anywhere. Until he proves he cannot play that position, you cannot move him from there. So he comes in and does that. So then the question remains, well, there's two actually. The first one is Conor McGovern or Tyler Smith at left guard. That's the first one. Because Conor McGovern, when you stop and you think about it and you look at what he's done in the last couple of weeks, I mean, it is vastly improved. Like, he's a totally different player. I don't know what you've seen. Tell me what you think.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, if you look at McGovern last year in the 6 games that he took over from Connor Williams, and obviously he didn't perform the way the coaching staff had expected him to, because they eventually said let's go back and bring Connor Williams back in. But this year, I mean, you're now literally wondering, do you move Tyler Smith into left guard? Do you stick with McGovern because McGovern has solidified a place? Again, maybe he's earned himself a contract with us next year.
That's the thing. That was the next question.
Yeah,
but go for it.
I mean, I can probably see that for the remainder. It depends to see when Tyron comes back, but I could see us when Tyron comes back. I could see us doing, splitting the play so that you almost get a 50-50, so that you're limiting the number. Not that they're negative play or bad plays, but you're limiting the number of negative plays that these guys are having by limiting the exposure. But we haven't truly, obviously we've been closing out games. We're not
really well.
Yeah, we're closing out the games, and we're then tinkering with a line when the game's out of reach. It'll be interesting to see what it's like when we're still facing competition that's ready to
backs
go
against
and
the wall.
Yeah. I don't see us tinkering with a line in the middle of a Christmas Eve game against the Eagles. I think we'll be fairly consistent in who's playing during that game. So.
Yeah, I mean, their line though, in terms of pass rush, doesn't really scare me.
No.
I know that's weird. They have the one guy for me over there, and that's it. But do you know what I think you're going to see a little of? When Tyron Smith comes back, and you've got Tyler Smith. Did I say that right? Yeah, I did. So many Tylers and Tyrants. So when what they do there, and what I can see happening is, because you've seen it a little bit already, is Tyler Smith comes in at left guard, and they put Conor McGovern in as fullback.
Yeah.
And now think about that, because Tyler Smith is already a very powerful run blocker. Now you put Conor McGovern in on that, and say, we're talking not outside the red zone, maybe on the fringe or just coming into the red zone, that distance there. You start doing that with Conor McGovern leading the pack, leading the charge as a fullback player. I mean, that is a scary way to look at things, and especially depending on which way they put their guys on the outside. I mean, you could throw in another tight end in there, and all of a sudden this whole thing just gets expanded. So I think there's a little bit of that line dancing going on there for sure, which is a little bit frustrating, because I'm all about consistency and continuity on the line. But so far it's working, so we'll see what happens. But Jason Peters, there's an interesting one. Has he earned a contract with Dallas next year if he decides to keep playing?
It depends what sort of money he's looking for. I mean, we've
Obviously,
got a fairly sweet deal with him at the moment.
Mhm.
Obviously, he's a Texas native. He's quite happy being here.
I'm
Is that
thinking,
gonna-
Steve, like locker room leadership,
Yeah.
coaching in that sense. That's what I'm thinking. Because notice how things have changed since he's come in.
Yeah. It's whether, he's going to be, 41, 42 by that point in
42.
time.
Yeah.
It is getting long in the tooth, and,
Very much.
maybe this is his final year and he's wanting to go out on a high. So, if depending on how far we go, assuming we get to the playoffs, which I'm not saying
It's
we're
looking
not going
likely.
to, but
It's looking
likely.
Yeah.
Depending on how far we go in the playoffs, then it might be him going out on a high, or he might feel that there's business to prove. But yeah, I'd be open to bringing him back next season as well.
I think so. Purely for what he provides in terms of guidance, because it seems to be, since he's come in, the offensive line players just seem to be finding a level of control. They just seem more sharper. Things are more tighter. And, the Cowboys are first in sacks allowed. The best. They have the least amount of sacks. So there you go. It says it all. But let's move on to the defense.
And I mean, Tyler, just quickly, Tyler Smith has been very effusive in his praise for Peters as well. That Peters is taking him under his wing. They're constantly chatting together. Offensive linemen don't have to watch as much game film or whatever, but they are sitting down together. They're talking about tendencies of the guys that they're going up against, giving little tidbits that, Jason Peters has seen just about everybody in this league at least once or twice during his career. Obviously, there's rookies that have come in and he doesn't know these guys, but he's quick to pick up on the game film, and he's developing that. Now, a lot of these guys, if you've got a guy that's coming in to potentially take your job, you're not gonna help him out. But Jason Peters knows that his time is coming to an end, and he's quite happy. He's quite happy to help this. And again, it's showing that the camaraderie is there in this room as well. So it's certainly creating the buzz.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with you there. Right, let's move on to the defense, and then we can start wrapping things up. All right, then. Defensive line. Solid. It does not matter. But what I find quite interesting, what we've seen last week, is how Dan Quinn will use multiple parts of this defensive roster to create plays and havoc in the backfield, the opposing offense. And what we saw last week is Donovan Wilson. He comes in as a sack. Anthony Barr comes flying in. John Clark gets a forced fumble. But what I like is that it doesn't matter where people put the focus. And that Dan Quinn seems to be able to see it, read, react, and change things up. And then all of a sudden, you've got safeties making plays. And Jaron Curse was doing some heavy lifting last week too, making some very important tackles, to stop players getting first down. I just think what I like is that the defensive line has these parts and different utilities that Dan Quinn can use. But that is such a threat to offenses that they focus on it so much that Dan Quinn just goes, okay, then, Donovan Wilson, off you go.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, going back to Dan Quinn's abilities, Cowboys offensive line, the way they were playing, defensive line, the way they were playing in the first half there, we weren't generating the pressure. Dan Quinn goes, right, okay, we need to bring players in and, send blitzes from the safety, send blitzes from Anthony Barr, whatever, and it was the ability to realize that this wasn't working, make the changes. And I mean, it goes back, if you read Charles Haley's autobiography, you know, Charles Haley once threw his helmet against the wall because Dave Campbell, when he was defensive coordinator, was saying, just do your job better, not making any ham adjustments, just saying, right, guys, go and I need you to do this, this, and this a hell of a lot better. And, you know, they weren't making the changes, and that was frustrating for the players. We're seeing that, you know, again, the changes are happening. We're getting the, you know, so even if it's not happening in the first half, something's going to happen and the dam's going to break, and then you're going to get the sacks. And at the moment, I think we've now got more sacks than any year on the Cowboys' history, with 43. Now, obviously, if you go back to the 70s, they didn't really record sacks. So it's a bit up in the air of that one, because obviously guys like Harvey Martin used to do 23 sacks a year. But I mean, as Joe here says, we're on pace for 70 sacks this year.
Which is insane.
Which is just crazy. Yeah. And, you know, we're a good 6 or 7 sacks ahead of the next one, which I believe is Philadelphia as well. So,
yes, I believe so. I think you're correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, what I like is that it's not the complete focus, like the focus on, there's Micah Parsons. He takes a lot of focus, but it's not like every team is going, or you know, when you look at the sheet and the sack numbers, it's not all Micah Parsons. That's what I like. That it's Micah Parsons, but it's Tank, it's Dorrance Armstrong, it's Sam Williams, Osado Digizua got his last week as well. You know, like it seems to be no matter what, you know, Dante Fowler, but every week or week by week, there's different guys getting in there and forcing the sack, forcing pressures. So like what that creates is it's not like if you're the opposing team and you're the coach trying to scheme things, you're just like, just stop him. It's like, it doesn't matter because like it's coming at you and you don't know where it's going to come from.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoy. But let's talk about the subject you brought up at the start, Lon, which was obviously Anthony Brown. And people complained a lot this week about Anthony Brown. And those people complaining are about to get even more complainy. And they're going to wish Anthony Brown was back. I had a question this week, which we answered on the mailbag, about which way round you would do things. Because Deron Bland is played last week, phenomenal. Playing more like a veteran than a rookie. Ask the question about would you move Bland out of the slot and put him on the outside? And I said no. Like you're seeing what Bland can do in the slot, and it works. You know the old, if it's not, then don't fix it.
Yeah.
Problem that we're gonna have is we're gonna have Calvin Joseph on the outside. How does that make you feel?
Nervous, to be honest, and quite frankly, you know, the better, at least from a statistical point of view, the better cornerback to have on the outside would probably be Nashawn Wright. Now, I don't mean statistical in terms of, you know, the plays that he's made this year or hasn't made this year, but literally having a 6-foot corner, you know, who makes it hard to, you know, cornerbacks on the outside, obviously they've got to defend the sideline. Quarterbacks are always going to try and throw the tight ball down the sideline, and you know, let the receivers go for it. And having a big tall guy like Nashawn Wright there should help stop that. But you know, Kelvin Joseph, I haven't seen. Kelvin Joseph has developed into a very good special teamer, but you're not seeing the play in the cornerback position. And you know, if you were just basing his career so far on what you've seen as a cornerback, he's not making the grade.
Yeah, I mean, like when people ask, like, what is the trouble with Joseph? It's the same thing. I'm going to say it's experience. He literally, he started at LSU, played literally hardly any. And then his last year in Kentucky, played like a handful of games, got like a bunch of tackles, one pass deflection all season. So that's what he finished his college career on. And you're just like, that's what he's lacking. He just lacks the experience. And like, what you could do is when you're in college and you see certain things happening, you could take that into the pros with you. And you could say, all right, I've seen this before and I know what that looked like. So I can fall back on that. Well, Joseph has none of that to fall back to. So he has no clue on like how to react to certain situations. And like we've said it before, if you haven't done it in college, it's certainly going to be tougher to do in the NFL.
Yeah. And the other thing you've got to think about, and obviously the reason why people have been maligning Anthony Brown is that Trayvon Diggs has become a shutdown corner this year. People are not throwing at Trayvon Diggs. Now he will give up the odd touchdown because he's still looking for those interceptions, and
he's an out of phase cornerback. Yeah.
One of the touchdowns that was given up there in the Colts game, you saw him bite on the move where he thought he was going for a receiver coming down the outside or coming down the middle. He was going to try and break on that ball, and obviously the quarterback Matt Ryan changed his mind and threw straight to the corner post pattern or corner pattern. But having Diggs on one side and taking that away, you're gonna force quarterbacks to actually go to the number 2 guy, and that means that you're going to be getting thrown at a hell of a lot. And you're gonna make plays occasionally, but 9 times out of 10, you're the one that's having to react to what the receiver's doing, and the receiver should know the play better than you. And all you can do is try and keep as close as you can.
React.
And Anthony Brown, to give him his credit, I mean, the catch by Slayton in the Giants game, I mean, that was a hell of a catch by Slayton. Brown wasn't out of position. The first catch by Christian Watson in the Green Bay game, Brown slipped, and that he was only a matter of inches away from making a play on that ball as well. And it's little things like that it's bad luck, but
it has an effect.
It has an effect.
Yeah, definitely. The other one on the defense before we get game predictions I wanted to talk about is more the linebackers than a guy is Leighton Vander Esch and Damone Clark. And I think so. We'll talk first LVE, who I think isn't playing bad. I think what he's doing is very effective. And so far, they're in like whatever happens when we get further down the line into this season and into the postseason, I think he's earned another contract next year.
I do too. I think you saw it probably tail end of last season. The beginning of last season, we were all going, "Oh no, he's not a great fit for this defense and what have you." And then by the end of the season, he was turning it up. And then in that playoff loss to San Francisco, he was the best player. He was the high point of the defense, to be honest. And this year he is built on it. Yeah, there's been some games where he's been out of play position or whatever, but that again, you maybe are out of position on 2 or 3 plays, but they're the ones that obviously gives up a 5 or 10 yard run, and those are the ones that then come up on the telestrator, and the fans pick up on what those are. Unless you actually go and watch the game film each week, the coaches film, and watch both angles and what have you don't then see actually he wasn't that far out of position, or it was just something happened that he got scrubbed out of the play or whatever. But this year he has developed, and I mean, and again, it's it's whether getting rid of somebody like Jalen Smith, who maybe was a bad influence on them, but it was enough of a kick up the backside, saying, well, this guy had a huge contract, and they're willing to part with him. Maybe I should knuckle down a bit, and you saw that. So,
because he played himself out of his 5th year extension, basically. But I think he's played himself back in.
yes.
He's when he's coming downhill and he finds a gap, he will find that ball carrier. And what I find incredible is that he's on. I've got it written here actually. That he's on 76 tackles for the year, and he's only missed 2. He literally never misses a tackle.
Yeah,
that's like an insane ratio. Like normally, guys are on like 8 or 9 missed tackle, like 10%. Do you know what I mean? He's on like 5% missed tackle, which is just like for a guy, in the role that he's in, that's out there to get the ball carrier, and really he's there to stop the run. And what's funny is that we talk about how bad the Cowboys' run defense is, but yet we played Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, and Jonathan Taylor and held them all to less than 100 yards in that game. And between the 3 of them, they only scored 1 touchdown.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing. And obviously, we were much maligned. We gave up 2 200-yard rushing games. The way it's turned around in the last 3 weeks, and you've gone up against big guys, you're going to need to do it this week as well, because Pierce is having a fantastic rookie season. He's on something like
doing fine.
Yeah, he'll break 1,000 yards this season, and he's doing it behind the line that's the equivalent of the Detroit Lions of the Barry Sanders era. Half the time Pierce is getting tackled in the backfield, the other times he's going for 12-yard runs. So the fact that he's so close to 1,000 at the moment shows that had he got the Dallas roll line, he might be on 2,000 yards already.
He's almost like like that LeGarrette Blount type runner. That's just like that bowling ball that just from snap number 1 to snap number 70 in the 4th quarter at the end of the game. That the tempo, the pace, the stamina, it just never falters. It never changes with Pierce. That's what I've seen. He was the same in college.
Yeah.
That's what he was known for.
A complete beast coming out of the backfield, and you certainly wouldn't want to meet up with him one-on-one.
Yeah, that is true. But it'll be interesting to see how they play him and how the Cowboys are going to react to that, because he's definitely, there's no arm tackles going on with this guy. And then the only other guy which ties in with that is Damone Clark, and I think he's playing, especially against the run, really, really well. But what I like is that how him and Anthony Barr are being interchangeable, and they change what they're doing on defense through Anthony Barr and Damone Clark. Which way round that they decide to do it dictates how the rest of the defense is going. And I think that's, especially with Anthony Barr coming off injury as well as Damone Clark, because you've got the whole thing with the spine and everything.
Yeah.
Who wasn't supposed to play this year based on that. I think that's good, because that keeps them both not overworked.
Yeah, as you say, we weren't expecting anything. Obviously Jerry had said, "Oh yeah, we reckon Clark's going to play this year." A lot of people looked at that and said, "Yeah, right." The guy's had neck surgery. Yeah, it's a 6 month, but he's played 179 snaps or thereabouts already. In 4 or 5 weeks worth of action. And he's not blowing everybody away, but he's been positive in the output that he's generating as well. So to get that from somebody who's a rookie, started the season injured, and almost had to hit the ground running because Barr had gone out injured, and he's treading water, as you say. He's not sinking at all. So
no, yeah, and like he's not one of those linebackers right now. And I know it's rookie year, rehab, all the rest of it, so it's tough on him. But he's not one of those linebackers. And I think I've already said this, so never mind. But he's not one of those guys that you're just like, wow, this is like one of the best guys in the league. He's a very good, able, capable linebacker. He's just going to be one of those guys where you're just like, can we get you to do your job? And he's going to go, yep. And you're going to go, yeah, he is. He's that type of guy. Do you know what I mean? Just that you ask him to do it and he'll just go and do it.
I think if everything had been right for him at the combine and what have you, if he'd been starting from day one, by now he would be probably coming into his own, and he would probably be developing into a star.
Something
I think,
so, yeah.
Yeah, I think next season, I think the sky's the limit for him. If he continues to build, I think the sky's the limit for him. He's still learning his way in the league. He's played 179 snaps over the 4 or 5 games, but he's developing. Give it, let him have the remainder of this year, and I think you'll see him coming out next year, and we'll be going, look at this, and he's obviously, we're not seeing Jabril Cox.
Yeah.
Why aren't we seeing Jabril Cox? Is it because the quality of the linebackers that we're getting, or the play that we're getting from Barr and what have you, are keeping him on the bench? So
yeah, that's really what it is. Somebody asked me that question. I was just like, buried on a depth chart, plain and simple. That Anthony Barr, Damon Clark, LVE are all better than him. Jabril Cox is that new wave type off ball linebacker. You've got that better than already. He's just slightly. There are things Cox can do better than what you've got, but that's very niche what he can do, But let's do this then. Let's do this. Final score predictions. Oh, dear Lord. This is going to get ugly. So everyone at home, let us know what your score predictions are going to be. I will give you mine. I'm going to say... Yeah, okay. I'm going to say... 42-13.
I was actually I'm not far off you on that. I was going to say 45-13. So.
Oh, okay. You're going for an extra Maha moment then. All right.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. You got to give it to him. Maha's playing well too. We always forget to talk about Brett Maha doing fantastically well. I have said this, and I will stick by my guns that I will not remove any posts off our social media. So my post on Brett Maha remains.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Brett.
Joe's equally buoyant as well. 55-10.
Yeah, I know we had a load of score predictions come through early in the show, so we did see them all fly in. But let's get on then. Let's do the final segment, which we should fly through because it's only you, mate. But but it's very, very important because you will see in a moment why. So let's get into the Fantasy Lounge. All right, then. So scores time. The moment we've all eagerly been waiting for. Who, at the moment, out of all the people in... because we've got two different parts. We've got the guests, but we've got the team.
Yep.
First right now, it is Jamie. Jamie had an absolute blinder. I was doing it. I was like, oh my God, what's going on here? So he absolutely stomped it.
What's interesting is that Paul and I are very close by each other because Paul and I are on week in, week out.
Yeah.
Jamie and Rich have been spotty this season so far, on the Thursday shows anyway.
Yeah. We have yet to get a score in for Graham, mind. I've just noticed that. Does that mean he's not been on a pre-game show?
He's not. He's not.
I think he's trying to avoid me. Maybe he thinks I gave him his bug that he's got at the moment. But yes, Jamie right now, who was in fact last in last place, has now stormed ahead. He's now first, getting nearly 50% of his predictions right. Wow. How insane. How insane. All right, then. So we will start on the Cowboys side. Dak Prescott, 19.3 fantasy points. Are we going boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, over, under? Hit me with it. Oh,
boy,
just
oh,
so
boy.
you know as well. Just so you're going higher.
Yep.
Okay. Just so you know as well that you went push on 2 of your scores last week. Both of them were bang on. Yeah. They were out by like 0.2.
Wow.
Yeah, by like a fifth of a point. And I was like, okay, he's on the ball, yeah, literally.
And my bets all came in last week as well. So it's been a good weekend. So
my college ones did, apart from the TCU game.
Yeah. And that was a crazy game.
That was stupid. It was stupid.
Yeah.
Stupid. Wasted my time watching that. But there we go. That's it. But so, Joe's saying way over.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, what's funny is they put in 19.3 fantasy, but I'm assuming they're thinking because of the Houston defensive backs, although Stingley's out by the looks of it. But I think they're thinking he's going to throw like an interception and that's going to lower his score.
Yeah. I think the other thing as well is obviously having this running game and obviously 220 yards and Dak only threw for 170 last week. So
exactly, yeah.
That's going to limit his score points as well. But
definitely, I don't think it's an insult to him, really.
The way our receivers are actually getting yards after the catch this year as well. I mean, that's helping Dak as well with with the yardage as well. So it's not just literally throwing 5-yard outs or 15-yard outs. We're getting yards after the catch, which is helping with that as well.
And it's those passes on third down. So you think like they're doing that. So he's only getting those small yardage, and then it's back to the run game, and it's build up. So I noticed his internet was working fine to send that comment though.
Yes, I know. He's just not wanting to do the fantasy picks this week.
Yeah, he's realised he's now third and he's gone in a huff. All right then, Ezekiel Elliott, 12.3 fantasy points. Bear in mind, the Houston Texans rank last in rushing yards allowed. The average, I think, if I remember off the top of my head, it's like 180 yards a game. It's like 20 yards more than who's 31st.
And it's 4.9 yards they're giving up on average as well. So right, so I'm going to go higher on that one as well, actually, I think.
Remember, you're on your own, yeah? So this now is just building up your points to try and get ahead of Jamie. Like, you only got 6, but you don't want to be getting some wrong, because if you get wrong, you go below Paul.
So Paul's saying higher on... I'm assuming that's on Dak, maybe. I don't know.
We're going to go with both.
Yep. And Joe's going over Joe's joining me. He's going over as well.
All right. I'm going to be taking Paul's scores as long as he can get them in. Paul, with the comments, just put like who the player is, right? And we'll keep this going. CD Lamb, 17.6 fantasy points. Bear in mind he's scoring like 22 points a game the last few weeks.
Yeah, I don't see a baiting now. He's got the smell of blood. Yeah, higher as well.
Higher. All right then. We'll wait for everyone else's one to come on that one. But we'll talk about Dalton Schultz. 10.2 fantasy points, which he hasn't been hitting, but mostly because they're spread in the wealth. Like he was still last week he was still second in receiving yards, but it was like 30 yards. But that was because like Gallup's on 25, Pollard's on 25. It's a lot of that, like it's CD Lamb on 70 yards and a touchdown, and then all the others on like 20, 30 yards, but a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's only, I think, the Thanksgiving Day game is about the only one where he's had multiple touchdowns, and that obviously took him over his points. I'll actually go push on that this week.
All right, I like it. The push master. And then the Cowboys defense, 7.5 fantasy points. I wonder where this is going.
Oh, that's going higher. That's going well higher.
Especially when they scored like 20 points last week. Scoring more than most quarterbacks. Right. On the other side then, so the Texans have decided, I think it was on Wednesday, that Davis Mills is coming back to play quarterback. Doesn't seem to really matter. That they've given up on the Kyle Allen experience and decided Mills is back. 13.6 fantasy points. Bear in mind, he's on 11 touchdowns to 11 interceptions.
Yeah. I'm gonna go that he's going to go lower this week. I think he's going to get sacked a number of times.
Is the trouble.
I think, and when he does get the ball out, I think there's going to be miscues. There's going to be miscommunication, and you're going to see the ball getting turned over. So yeah, lower.
Yeah, and I could see some pressures coming in that are going to make him fling that ball out, and you're going to see like Malik Hooker pick one off, or Trayvon Diggs. This is a perfect game for Trayvon Diggs. Micah Parsons even. Do you know what I mean? He almost did it last week against Matt Ryan.
I know.
Which would have been a cakewalk to the end zone if he caught that ball.
And it's the only thing he's missing from his resume.
His line, is complete. So you've at least got like a 1 on every line. Damon Pierce then, 12.7 fantasy points. As good as he's been, just to let you know, he has failed to reach at least 50 rush yards the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, he's certainly tailing off, and whether it's the rookie wall or
I
think because of the fact that he's all they've got. they've got Cooks who can come on, but I mean he's not interested. He's kind of shut himself down since not getting the trade.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's going to be the focus for the Cowboys, and I think we'll keep him in check. So it's going to be lower as well.
Lower, interesting. Lower on that one. Nico Collins. So obviously, as we said, Cooks is unlikely to play, which means Collins becomes the number one. I quite like Collins. I think he's not a bad wide receiver. The issue is he's hitched to this offense. 10.2 fantasy points for Collins. This one, it's just a complete stab in the dark. I think this one.
I think that's probably going to be about right. I mean, we're saying somebody's going to get a touchdown. If both you and I are going 13 points, somebody's going to get a touchdown. A touchdown in about 40 or 50 yards. I can see that being his sort of score line. So
like a red zone catch sort of thing.
Yeah, I'll go push on that one as well.
He's the push master. Jordan Atkins, 6.3 fantasy points, and I actually watched a little bit when I was writing the article because I needed to look a little bit more at him, and everything. It's like as if what he needs is somebody to take a screwdriver to his game and just turn that screw, just to tighten everything up. It's there. It just needs squishing together.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about the Houston Texans. They do have
development players. Yeah,
they've got talent. They've got guys that are developing, but it's just it's like everything's out of phase, and they're not getting everything working at the same time and in sync.
Yeah.
Even so, I mean, 6.3. I'm going to go slightly higher on that one. I think, obviously that's where the quarterback's going to be looking. Will be the middle of the field, looking for a safety blanket, much the way Dak does with his tight ends. So,
like, especially with the pass rush coming, you think like he's going to want to get the ball out quickly. So put the tight end on some hitch routes. Try and get him out there quick, get the ball out quick. Is PPR. So you think like 2 passes. He catches 2, there's 2 points straight away.
Yep.
So now he's just going to make the first down a couple of times. So it's possible. And then the defense, 6.1 fantasy points. I mean, we were talking about this Houston Texans team being a developing team. Being a developing team. It's definitely developing on the defense. Certainly a defensive back anyway. But 6.1 fantasy points. I mean, I think that's got to be an interception based on what they're looking at. But for me,
lower for me on this one, because if both you and I have got 40 burgers on tap, then they lose. They get almost negative points for having given up that sort of point score, and then obviously, if you're racking up the yardage as well, that's just adding it to it. So you might see a negative number there.
Yeah, I think they have done that a few times this week. But yes, that is it for this week's show. Next week we have a guest on the pre-game show. I had one this week on the post-game show. Looked a lot of fun. I was out doing some Christmas duties, so I couldn't join you guys.
Yeah, it was a very good show on Tuesday night. Obviously we had Lauren coming on, and it was interesting to get her take, and it was obviously great interaction with everybody who tuned in for the show as well. And thanks to all the guys for their comments, and obviously keeping it civil as well. We did have some concerns that it might turn a bit risky, but The feedback from Lauren was great, and hopefully we should be able to get a few more, and a few current cheerleaders as well. So
a couple of the current ones can be a bit tougher to do. That's why we get it tough trying to get current players on, because they've got to be careful with what they say. Otherwise, we would have them on.
And then it was good. It was good having Chris and Paul tuning in as well and catching up with them. And
I just caught the end of that as I got in. So, yeah. But, I mean, we'll wrap this up. Hit me with it then, Mr. Lawn.
Right. So, as you know, Paul's out there at the moment. He's booked up with Cowboys Experience. He got to meet up with Sam Williams and tell him that he actually made a mistake and he's eating humble pie. So, book with Cowboys Experience for the ultimate meet and greet, stadium tours, game tickets, tailgating, and much, much more. Get to meet guys this week. I think Jay Novacek's around, Drew Pearson's around.
Yes.
You've got Darren Woodson, Micah Parsons, Ed Too Tall Jones, Zach Martin. And if you use the code UK Cowboys, tell them that we sent you, they'll treat you like absolute royalty, and they'll give you
free stuff
and chicken.
And also check out all these guys. These are all the other fellow content creators that have been on the show, support the show, talk to us. All the various people there. So make sure you go give them a follow. You probably follow most of them. And also check out our 2023 travel package through Cowboys Experience that we have put together. More information on that as we get a little closer to next season. But we're not going to talk about next season yet. There's still so much more to talk about with this year.
Yeah, you've definitely got to take it one game at a time and enjoy the ride at the moment. As I said, this is the first year that we're going to have back-to-back 10-win seasons. And that, last time we did that was at the tail end of the Jimmy Johnson and Barry Switzer years. So fingers crossed we're coming full circle.
That's it, yeah. Talking about incremental rises, this is the rise. But there we are, mate. I will let you have the final word. But yes, guys, stay safe. Have a great weekend. Enjoy game day. We'll see you on the other side. Take it away, Lon.
Yeah, have a great weekend, guys. Let's go Cowboys. Early start for us. Remember to look out for Paul in the stands when they go. And obviously check out Paul on his Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And you can catch up with the antics that are going on there. Have a good weekend, guys.